The World Health Organization has been a disaster area from begin to end. They had one job here, one job, and their job was make sure a global pandemic does not overrun the world. The United States, by the way, pays millions and millions of dollars into the WHO every single year. The United States is the single largest funder of the WHO. We contribute nearly 15% of the WHO's annual budget. China, which apparently now runs the WHO, contributes a lot less than that. China contributes like 2% of the annual budget of the WHO, last time I checked, something like that. Well, Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, he says that the WHO needs to be held accountable for their role in promoting misinformation and helping communist China cover up a global pandemic. He added, "We know communist China is lying about how many cases and deaths they have, what they knew and when they knew it. The WHO never bothered to investigate further. Their inaction cost lives." That, of course, is 100% true. The WHO is a disaster. The WHO has refused to admit Taiwan. Basically, by the way, Taiwan, one of the only nations that actually handled this thing well. It's a nation of 24 million people. The total number of deaths in Taiwan at this moment is well under 50, I believe. So Taiwan has really handled this thing as well as anybody can handle this thing. The number of deaths in Taiwan total is 5 out of 329 cases. This is according to Worldometers. So they have one of the lowest rates of death in the industrialized world from this thing. They're not even a member of the WHO at the behest of the Chinese government. The WHO has praised Beijing for its response. The WHO ignored the fact that Beijing lied about this thing for months. As I mentioned yesterday on the radio show, Reason Magazine cited a study that suggested that if the Chinese had been more forthcoming about this thing 3 weeks earlier, it could have saved 95% of casualties across the planet. The WHO has done nothing but praise China and talk about how wonderful China is. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, according to the Daily Caller, who won his election to the post with the backing of China, praised the government's openness to sharing information about the pandemic after traveling there on January 28th. Okay, that was like a week after China claimed there was no human-to-human transmission. Dr. Bruce Aylward, Assistant Director of the WHO, has praised China's agile and aggressive response to the virus. He's the one who was interviewed by a journalist in Hong Kong who asked why Taiwan isn't part of the WHO, pretended that his connection cut out, and then his biography just mysteriously was removed from the WHO website. Aylward said at a WHO press conference on February 27th on a fact-finding mission, "If I had COVID-19, I'd want to be treated in China," which is weird since China has apparently been lying about all of its statistics. So the WHO failed at every level. Good for Rick Scott for pointing out the United States should not be footing the bill for the WHO's failures here. There needs to be a radical reconsideration of exactly how these international organizations are run. Because the bottom line is that when it comes to fighting a pandemic, these are not democratic decisions, okay? I can think of nothing less democratic than shutting down the entire world economy, okay? It's pretty undemocratic. Pandemic response is not the same as normal response. And international institutions exist for disaster response. That is their goal. The entire purpose of a WHO is to prevent disasters. The entire purpose of a UN is to prevent disasters. And yet these things are treated like democracies in the sense that not the most powerful country, like the United States, has the most weight. Instead, the leaders of these nations are going to spend their days recognizing that the U.S. will foot the bill and everyone else will free ride. China will free ride. And then the United States will just continue footing the bill because we are supposedly the bedrock of international institutions. Well, if we're the bedrock, we should start throwing around our weight. Okay, the fact that the WHO completely failed in its one task here, and we footed 15% of the budget at the time, is a disaster area. It truly is. And this has been true for the United Nations as well. Okay, the United Nations has for a very long time been promoting some of the worst policy on planet Earth. We've been footing the bill for the United Nations. It's time to rejigger exactly how the United States interacts with these international institutions. I've heard a lot of people saying the United States should be more multilateral. Question, was China super multilateral in its original approach to this problem? I don't think it was. Do you? It was not multilateral, as it turns out. It turns out that China was very not multilateral, and its failure to be multilateral is what has led to this pandemic. And then, by the way, China started its propaganda effort trying to blame the United States online, and its propaganda effort where they sent resources to other countries like Spain that were complete failures. They sent testing to Spain. The test didn't work. But it didn't matter. The entire media ran with the headlines. Only now are the media beginning to catch on to the fact that China was lying. Like, only now. It's pretty incredible. I mean, the fact that the media are only now realizing that perhaps China is not to be trusted, like, so we should trust the media, which blame Trump but not China, and call it and New York Times editorials about the Trump virus and all of this. Okay, good for Rick Scott. It's time to, honestly, we need to take a chunk out of China for this. The repercussions for this need to be extraordinarily grave. Okay, China just cost the planetary economy probably $10 trillion minimum It cost us $6 trillion just here in the United States. So apparently, Beijing is still disappearing people over there. Seriously, ridiculous. So again, the WHO needs to be reexamined. Any international institution in which China takes part needs to be reexamined. And we need to start using our leverage in order to force China into a corner. They need to be put in the corner. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all of our future content.